Every presidential assassination attempt in history, only 3 of them survived.
Reagan came within an inch. The bullet was lodged an inch from his heart, a split-second decision, and a split second from dying, right? He lost more than half his blood that day.
In light of the recent assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump, it's a good time to look back through our nation's history at other plots and attempts on the lives of our presidents. The history of attempted and successful presidential assassinations in the United States reveals a sobering chronicle of violence and political turmoil. From the 19th century to modern times, U.S. presidents have faced numerous threats from individuals driven by ideological fervor, personal grievances, or mental instability. 4 presidents, Abraham Lincoln, James A. Garfield, William McKinley, and John F. Kennedy, were tragically assassinated, while others narrowly escaped death thanks to quick-thinking security personnel and sheer luck. These events have profoundly shaped presidential security protocols and highlighted the constant vigilance required to protect the nation's leaders. Early attempts, 1800s. The history of presidential assassination attempts in the United States dates back to the early 19th century. One of the first recorded incidents was the attempted assassination of President Andrew Jackson on January 30th, 1835. The attacker, Richard Lawrence, was a mentally unstable house painter who believed he was King Richard III of England and that Jackson's death would restore his lost wealth. Lawrence approached Jackson as he left a congressional funeral service at the Capitol and fired 2 pistols at point-blank range. Miraculously, both pistols misfired, and Jackson, known for his fiery temper, confronted Lawrence with his cane. Lawrence was swiftly subdued by bystanders, including Davy Crockett, who was also present. This incident underscored the vulnerability of the president and the need for better security measures, although it would be many years before such measures were significantly enhanced. Another early plot that could have changed the course of American history was the Baltimore plot in 1861. As President-elect Abraham Lincoln prepared to assume office, tensions between the North and South were at a peak. Detectives from the Pinkerton National Detective Agency uncovered a conspiracy to assassinate Lincoln as he passed through Baltimore, en route to his inauguration in Washington, D.C. The conspirators planned to kill Lincoln during a public appearance at the Calvert Street station. To thwart the plot, Lincoln's security team devised a plan for him to travel secretly through Baltimore at night. Disguised and under heavy guard, Lincoln's covert passage through Baltimore was successful, allowing him to reach the Capitol safely and assume the presidency. This early threat highlighted the perils facing the nation's leaders even before the Civil War began. These early assassination attempts revealed the intense political and social divisions in the United States and the extreme measures some individuals were willing to take to achieve their goals. In both instances, quick thinking and a bit of luck prevented the tragic loss of life. The attempts on Jackson and Lincoln's lives also served as early warnings of the dangers faced by those in the highest office and hinted at the need for more structured and reliable protection for U.S. presidents. Successful assassinations.
It's hard to believe that Lincoln not only saw John Wilkes Booth perform in a play, but saw him at Ford's Theater, which would become the scene of Booth's final act, and Lincoln's final act, the assassination.
The assassination of Abraham Lincoln in 1865 remains one of the most significant events in American history. John Wilkes Booth, a well-known actor and Confederate sympathizer, shot Lincoln at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. on April 14, 1865. Booth's motivations were rooted in his deep support for the Confederate cause and his anger over the South's defeat in the Civil War. As Lincoln watched the play Our American Cousin from his presidential box, Booth slipped in and fired a single bullet into the back of Lincoln's head. Booth then leapt onto the stage, allegedly shouting, "Sic semper tyrannis," a Latin phrase meaning, "thus always to tyrants," which is also the state motto of Virginia. Lincoln was carried to a nearby boarding house where he succumbed to his injuries the following morning. His death plunged the nation into deep mourning and significantly altered the course of Reconstruction. Booth was tracked down and killed 12 days later, and his co-conspirators were captured and executed or imprisoned.
Talk about presidents have been assassinated, but some of presidents like James Garfield got injured and lived on for months and months.
The assassination of James A. Garfield in 1881 was equally tragic, and underscored the lack of effective medical care for wounded presidents at that time. Charles J. Guiteau, a disgruntled office seeker who believed he was owed a political appointment, shot Garfield on July 2, 1881, at the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station in Washington, D.C. Guiteau fired twice, hitting Garfield in the back and arm. The president was taken to the White House, where doctors attempted to treat him, but their efforts were hampered by poor medical practices, including the use of unsterilized instruments. Garfield lingered for 11 weeks, suffering from infections and internal complications, before dying on September 19, 1881. Guiteau was arrested immediately after the shooting and declared, "I am a stalwart of the stalwarts. Arthur is president now," referring to Vice President Chester A. Arthur. Guiteau's trial was sensational, and he was eventually convicted and hanged. Garfield's assassination led to public outcry over the spoils system, and his death was a catalyst for the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, which sought to curb corruption and patronage in government appointments. The assassination of President William McKinley in 1901 marked another dark chapter in American history. McKinley was attending the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York, when he was shot by Leon Czolgosz, an anarchist who believed that McKinley was a symbol of oppression. On September 6, 1901, Czolgosz approached McKinley during a public reception at the Temple of Music, concealing his gun in a handkerchief. As McKinley extended his hand to greet him, Czolgosz fired 2 shots into the president's abdomen. Despite initial optimism about his recovery, McKinley's condition worsened due to gangrene caused by the bullet wounds, and he died on September 14, 1901. His assassination led to a swift response from law enforcement, and Czolgosz was executed by electric chair later that year. The public outcry following McKinley's death spurred significant changes in the Secret Service, transforming it into the full-time protective agency for the president that it is today. Theodore Roosevelt, who succeeded McKinley, famously remarked on the vulnerability of public figures, saying, "It is not the critic who counts. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena."
Nearly 50 years after those shots rang out in Dealey Plaza, there was now near silence when people see that car, where it now sits, at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan.
The assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963 in Dallas, Texas, remains one of the most scrutinized and debated events in U.S. history. Kennedy was riding in a motorcade through Dealey Plaza when he was struck by 2 bullets fired by Lee Harvey Oswald from a nearby building. Kennedy's head and neck injuries were fatal, and he was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at Parkland Memorial Hospital. The assassination was broadcast on television, leaving an indelible mark on the American psyche. Oswald was arrested, but was shot and killed by nightclub owner Jack Ruby 2 days later, before he could stand trial. The Warren Commission was established to investigate the assassination and concluded that Oswald acted alone, though many conspiracy theories persist. Kennedy's death had profound implications for the nation, affecting civil rights legislation and the Cold War. His widow, Jacqueline Kennedy, poignantly reflected the nation's grief when she said, "He didn't even have the satisfaction of being killed for civil rights. It had to be some silly little communist." The assassination led to extensive reforms in presidential security, including the increased use of bulletproof vehicles and more rigorous Secret Service protocols. 20th century attempts and plots. During President William Howard Taft's term, there was a significant assassination attempt in 1909 during his summit with Mexican President Porfirio Diaz in El Paso, Texas, and Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. This was the first meeting between a U.S. and Mexican president and involved unprecedented security measures, including thousands of U.S. and Mexican troops, Secret Service agents, and a private security detail led by Frederick Russell Burnham. On the day of the summit, a man named Julius Bergerson was apprehended with a concealed palm pistol just a few feet from Taft and Diaz. The intense security ensured the summit proceeded without incident, but the plot underscored the constant threats faced by presidents. Herbert Hoover also faced a significant assassination plot shortly after he was elected president. In 1928, during a goodwill tour of Central and South America, Hoover's train was targeted by Argentine anarchists, led by Severino di Giovanni. The plan was to blow up the train as it crossed the Andes Mountains. The plotters had detailed information about Hoover's itinerary, but their plan was thwarted when the bomber was arrested before he could place the explosives. Hoover, known for his calm demeanor, downplayed the incident, even tearing off the front page of a newspaper that reported the plot to prevent his wife from worrying. Hoover's successful tour and his handling of the threat demonstrated his resilience and the importance of vigilance in presidential security.
A dastardly act. The entire country is shocked at the attempted assassination of ex-President Roosevelt in Milwaukee Monday night.
Theodore Roosevelt's 1912 assassination attempt remains a remarkable story of resilience and determination. On October 14, 1912, while campaigning for a third term as president under the Progressive Party, Roosevelt was shot by John Schrank, a saloon keeper who claimed he was instructed by the ghost of William McKinley to prevent Roosevelt from seeking another term. The bullet struck Roosevelt in the chest after passing through a steel eyeglass case and a 50-page copy of his speech, which he was carrying in his coat pocket. Despite the injury, Roosevelt insisted on delivering his scheduled speech before seeking medical attention, famously beginning with, "Friends, I shall ask you to be as quiet as possible. I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." He spoke for 90 minutes with the bullet lodged in his chest, demonstrating his unyielding spirit. Roosevelt survived the assassination attempt, and Schrank was found insane and committed to an asylum for the rest of his life. The assassination attempt on Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1933 highlights the dangers presidents face even before taking office. On February 15, 1933, just weeks before his inauguration, Roosevelt was delivering a speech from the back of an open car in Miami, Florida. Giuseppe Zangara, an unemployed bricklayer with anarchist leanings, fired several shots at Roosevelt. Although he missed the president-elect, he struck 5 other people, including Chicago Mayor Anton Cermak, who was standing near Roosevelt. Cermak was severely wounded and later died from his injuries. Zangara's motive was his hatred for capitalists and all government officials, whom he blamed for his suffering. Upon being arrested, Zangara expressed no remorse, stating, "I don't hate Mr. Roosevelt personally. I hate all officials and anybody who is rich." Zangara was swiftly tried, convicted of murder, and executed in Florida's electric chair. The incident underscored the constant threat faced by national leaders and reinforced the importance of maintaining robust security measures, even during seemingly routine public appearances. The assassination attempt on President Harry S. Truman in 1950 is a dramatic episode that underscores the risks faced by presidents even within the relative safety of their residences. On November 1, 1950, 2 Puerto Rican nationalists, Oscar Collazo and Griselio Torresola, attempted to storm Blair House, where Truman was staying during renovations at the White House. Their goal was to draw attention to the Puerto Rican independence movement by killing the president. Torresola approached from the west and engaged in a gunfight with a guard, mortally wounding him before being killed by another officer. Collazo, approaching from the east, was injured and subdued by Secret Service agents. Truman was napping upstairs at the time of the attack. Hearing the gunfire, he looked out the window but was quickly ushered away to safety. The bravery of the Secret Service agents in thwarting the attack was widely praised, and Truman later stated, "A president has to expect these things." The incident led to increased scrutiny and improvements in presidential security protocols. Richard Nixon's presidency saw several assassination plots, one of the most notable being the bizarre scheme orchestrated by Samuel Bick in 1974. Bick, a former tire salesman with a history of mental illness, planned to hijack a commercial airliner and crash it into the White House. Bick believed that killing Nixon would solve the economic problems he blamed on the administration. On February 22, 1974, Bick attempted to execute his plan by storming a plane at Baltimore-Washington International Airport. He killed an airport policeman and forced his way onto the plane, but the aircraft never left the ground. Bick was shot by police through the cockpit window and later died from his wounds. Bick's elaborate and desperate plan highlighted the lengths to which some would go to express their discontent with the government, and it underscored the necessity for rigorous security measures at all times. Nixon, who had faced numerous threats during his tenure, once reflected on the dangers of the presidency, saying, "If you want to make beautiful music, you must play the black and the white notes together." His statement metaphorically addressed the need to handle both the good and bad aspects of public service, including the inherent dangers. The presidency of Gerald Ford experienced 2 assassination attempts within a month, highlighting the turbulent and dangerous political climate of the 1970s. The first attempt occurred on September 5, 1975, in Sacramento, California, when Lynette "Squeaky" Fromm, a follower of Charles Manson, aimed a Colt .45 at Ford as he walked through a crowd. The gun failed to discharge, and Secret Service agents quickly subdued her. Fromm later explained that her motive was to bring attention to environmental issues and the plight of the redwoods. She famously said during her trial, "I stood up and waved a gun for a reason." This attempt shook the nation. But even more startling was the second attempt on Ford's life just 17 days later. On September 22, 1975, in San Francisco, Sarah Jane Moore, a political radical, fired a shot at Ford from a distance of 40 feet. A bystander named Oliver Sipple intervened, deflecting her aim, and the bullet narrowly missed the president. Moore later expressed regret, saying, "I'm very glad I did not succeed." These back-to-back attempts underscored the ongoing threats faced by sitting presidents and led to significant changes in the way the Secret Service protected the president, including increased use of metal detectors and tighter control over crowds at public events. Jimmy Carter's presidency also faced a potential assassination plot that was thwarted before it could be carried out. In 1979, 2 men, Raymond Lee Harvey and Osvaldo Ortiz, were arrested in Los Angeles after claiming they were involved in a plan to kill Carter. Harvey, a drifter with a history of mental illness, alleged that he and Ortiz had been hired by a group of Central American hitmen to assassinate the president during a campaign rally. Harvey claimed that the plot involved using starter pistols to create a diversion while the real assassins carried out the attack. Both men were found in possession of starter pistols, but no other weapons were discovered, and authorities were skeptical of the plot's feasibility. Nevertheless, the incident served as a reminder of the ever-present dangers faced by presidents and the lengths to which individuals would go to harm them. Carter, known for his calm and pragmatic demeanor, took the threat in stride and continued with his schedule. Reflecting on the incident, Carter remarked, "I have complete confidence in the Secret Service. They do an extraordinary job under difficult circumstances." This episode highlighted the importance of vigilance and preparedness in ensuring the safety of the nation's leaders. Modern era, attempts and plots.
John Hinckley was charged with 13 crimes, later acquitted by reason of insanity.
I was the most scrutinized mental patient in America. Even my judge said that.
The assassination attempt on President Ronald Reagan on March 30, 1981, was one of the most alarming and closely watched events of the modern era. John Hinckley Jr., motivated by an obsessive desire to impress actress Jodie Foster, fired 6 shots at Reagan as he exited the Washington Hilton Hotel after giving a speech. One of the bullets ricocheted off the presidential limousine and struck Reagan in the chest, puncturing a lung and causing severe internal bleeding. Despite his critical condition, Reagan managed to walk into George Washington University Hospital, where he famously quipped to the medical staff, "I hope you're all Republicans." The quick actions of the Secret Service and the medical team saved his life, and Reagan was able to make a full recovery. Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity and was committed to a mental institution. Reagan's near-death experience had a profound impact on his presidency, emphasizing the resilience and determination of the American leader. Reagan later reflected on the incident, saying, "I have learned that one cannot fashion a credible deterrent out of an incredible action." The 1993 assassination plot against former President George H.W. Bush underscored the international dangers that U.S. leaders face. During a visit to Kuwait to commemorate the coalition victory in the Gulf War, Kuwaiti authorities foiled an attempt by Iraqi intelligence agents to assassinate Bush using a car bomb. The plot was orchestrated in retaliation for his role in the Gulf War, which had led to the defeat of Iraqi forces. The Kuwaiti security forces discovered the explosives and arrested the conspirators before they could carry out their plan. President Bill Clinton, who was in office at the time, responded by ordering a cruise missile strike on the Iraqi intelligence services headquarters in Baghdad. The incident highlighted the ongoing threat posed by international actors and the measures taken to protect former presidents. Reflecting on the foiled plot, Bush expressed his gratitude for the swift actions of the Kuwaiti and U.S. intelligence services, noting, "I'm grateful for the protection and vigilance that prevented a terrible tragedy." This attempt underscored the global reach of threats against U.S. leaders and the importance of international cooperation in ensuring their safety.
14 men believed to be working for Saddam Hussein smuggled explosives into Kuwait to assassinate him with car bombs during a visit to Kuwait University as revenge for defeating Iraq in the Gulf War. The plot was foiled when Kuwaiti officials found one of the bombs and arrested the suspected assassins.
The presidency of Bill Clinton saw multiple threats and assassination attempts, reflecting the heightened security challenges of the 1990s. On October 29, 1994, Francisco Martin Duran fired a total of 29 shots with a semi-automatic rifle at the White House from Pennsylvania Avenue. Duran, who had a history of mental illness, believed he was on a mission to save the world from an alien invasion. His shots hit the White House, but President Clinton was inside watching a football game and was unharmed. Secret Service agents and tourists tackled Duran, preventing further violence. Duran was later convicted of attempted assassination and sentenced to 40 years in prison. This incident highlighted the persistent threat of individuals with delusions or extreme beliefs taking drastic actions. Reflecting on the event, Clinton remarked on the need for constant vigilance and the effectiveness of the Secret Service, stating, "I am deeply grateful to the men and women who protect me and my family every day." In 1996, another plot against Clinton was uncovered, this time involving a plane crash. On September 12, 1994, Frank Eugene Corder, a troubled truck driver, stole a Cessna 150 and crashed it into the south lawn of the White House, intending to hit the presidential residence. Clinton and his family were not at the White House at the time, as they were staying at Blair House. Corder was killed in the crash, which caused only minor damage to the building. This incident highlighted the vulnerabilities in airspace security around the White House and led to stricter regulations and enhanced radar systems to prevent similar attacks. Clinton, reflecting on this event, reiterated the importance of addressing all potential threats, no matter how unconventional they might be. The combination of these two incidents during Clinton's presidency underscored the evolving nature of threats to the president and the ongoing need to adapt security measures to new and emerging dangers.
The FBI says it has foiled an ISIS plot to assassinate former President George W. Bush. The Justice Department has charged an Iraqi citizen living in Ohio with aiding and abetting the plot by planning to smuggle 4 ISIS operatives into the country to kill the former president.
George W. Bush faced several assassination attempts during his presidency, illustrating the persistent and varied threats to American leaders in the 21st century. One of the most notable attempts occurred on May 10, 2005, in Tbilisi, Georgia. During a public speech in Freedom Square, a man named Vladimir Arutunian threw a live grenade towards the podium where Bush and Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili were standing. The grenade landed within 100 feet of the president's, but failed to detonate due to a faulty handkerchief wrapped around it. Arutunian was later apprehended and sentenced to life imprisonment. Bush, reflecting on the incident, expressed his gratitude for the quick actions of security personnel and local authorities. This attempt underscored the dangers of public appearances and the need for constant vigilance. Another significant threat during Bush's presidency involved Richard Reed, also known as the shoe bomber. In December 2001, Reed attempted to detonate explosives hidden in his shoes on an American Airlines flight from Paris to Miami. His plan was foiled by the vigilance of passengers and crew members, who subdued him after noticing his suspicious behavior. Reed's failure highlighted the ongoing risks of terrorist plots targeting American interests and the importance of rigorous security protocols in aviation. Bush, responding to the heightened threats post-9/11, emphasized the need for international cooperation in combating terrorism. Reflecting on the shoe bomber incident, Bush noted, "We must be vigilant and resolute in the face of such threats to ensure the safety and security of our nation and its people." These incidents during Bush's tenure illustrated the diverse and complex nature of threats against U.S. presidents and the critical need for comprehensive security measures.
In October 2008, about 2 months after Barack Obama became the official Democratic nominee for president, police arrested 19-year-old Paul Schlesselman of Arkansas and 21-year-old Daniel Cowart of Tennessee for plotting his assassination. Cowart and Schlesselman, both self-described white supremacists, were apprehended while driving a truck that had the words "Honk if you love Hitler" written on the hood.
During Barack Obama's presidency, several significant assassination plots were uncovered, underscoring the persistent threats against U.S. leaders. In 2008, Jerry Blanchard from North Carolina and Raymond H. Geisel from Miami were arrested for making threatening statements against Obama, both motivated by extremist beliefs. Another serious plot in Denver involved 3 men planning to assassinate Obama during the Democratic National Convention, but they were apprehended before they could act. Additionally, Paul Schlesselman and Daniel Cowart, white supremacists, planned a killing spree that included Obama, but were arrested and sentenced for their crimes. These incidents highlighted the constant vigilance required to protect the president. Reflections and analysis. The history of assassination attempts on U.S. presidents reveals recurring themes and insights into the motivations of those who commit such acts. Common motivations include political extremism, personal vendettas, mental instability, and a desire for notoriety. These assassins and would-be assassins often view their actions as a means to disrupt or change the political landscape. For instance, John Wilkes Booth saw Abraham Lincoln's assassination as a way to avenge the South's defeat in the Civil War. Similarly, Leon Czolgosz viewed William McKinley as a symbol of capitalist oppression. The evolution of presidential security has been significantly influenced by these attempts and plots. The early days of American presidencies saw relatively lax security, which evolved drastically following high-profile assassinations. The Secret Service, initially established to combat counterfeiting, was eventually tasked with protecting the president after McKinley's assassination. The protective measures have grown increasingly sophisticated, incorporating advanced technology and rigorous protocols to counter various threats. These assassination attempts also profoundly impact the political climate and public perception. Successful assassinations, such as those of Lincoln and Kennedy, led to national mourning and significant political and social changes. Lincoln's death affected the Reconstruction-era's trajectory, while Kennedy's assassination shifted the momentum of the civil rights movement and intensified the Cold War's dynamics. Each incident forces a re-evaluation of how the nation protects its leaders and the balance between security and the president's accessibility to the public. The reflections on these incidents often come from those who directly experienced the threats. Ronald Reagan's resilience following his near-fatal shooting, demonstrated in his humor and determination, exemplifies how presidents often personally cope with such dangers. Reagan once said, "What I'd really like to do is go down in history as the president who made Americans believe in themselves again." His recovery and continued leadership helped bolster public confidence during a turbulent time. Overall, the history of presidential assassination attempts underscores the fragile nature of democratic leadership and the relentless efforts required to safeguard it. This ongoing vigilance reflects the broader societal commitment to protecting not just the person of the president, but the stability and continuity of the nation's democratic institutions. Now it's time to hear from you. Which of these attempts was most surprising to hear about? Let us know in the comments section below.